Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Mullin It Over here on Heart of Ohio Sports. Nate Mullins in Studio Squared. We got the Wizard in house keeping us live here tonight, and we got somebody joining us here on the face to face here on the video conference.
On the
Tater
Fat Cave.
himself, Tommy Hall. How we doing, Tommy?
Live from the Fat Cave.
Hey, brother. It's been a while since we got a chance to catch up with you. Last time you and I sat down, we were calling some basketball over there in Bowling Green. But what you been up to lately, Bubba?
Swinging bikes, getting ready for the spring. Baseball is in the air, but more importantly, free agency's been in the air. And I've been smelling what AB's been cooking for the Browns.
I'll tell you
in
what.
Free agency this season.
I'll tell you what. What's really nice about this offseason is, the way the Browns finished last year. It was kind of like a fart in the wind. Like everybody just kind of forgot about how the season ended. They kind of whimpered away, and they're kind of forgotten about right now. But AB's making some quiet moves, including what happened today. What do you think about them trading for Elijah Moore?
Like I told you, I don't think that for number 42 you could get any better. Plus, you get a pick back.
Yeah.
AB is, like I said, he's rolling. I believe I heard rumors that they went for Judy, but they weren't giving up they have first rounder to give up. But
Yeah.
Kind of interesting that again, the fallout of the Jets Packers fiasco kind of playing into the hands of the Browns. And like you talked about, I know you're going to cause a lot of controversy because you win with performance, but I think back to that 2020 season, getting to the divisional, and then having that game against Kansas City, and then for 2 years the Bengals kind of fell into the stepped in some shit and came out smelling like roses, and got into contention for some Super Bowls there. And now they act like the Browns, just kind of slipped down to the basement. No, we've been here the whole damn time. And in 2023, again, all that talk about going back to the chip, you get the AFC has been a placeholder for the Cleveland Browns since 2020, and they're coming back to finish business this year.
I have a feeling that everybody's going to sleep on this team, including the media. You're not going to hear the usual media coverage that the Browns got with Baker Mayfield. And, after the Baker Mayfield draft, I feel like the media really loved him and his persona and his who he was. So that's why the media kind of gravitated towards him. You had the cons of it and the pros of it. You had guys like, Colin Cowturd, who, constantly berated him all the time. But you had ESPN, who was constantly putting the Browns into the headlines. And I think for a long time, people kind of got sick of them talking about this team when they were kind of middling in mediocrity. But when they started making noise, you saw what happened, Tommy. When they made that playoff run, they became kind of like America's team. Everybody started rooting for the Browns, wanting the Browns to win. It's been so long since the Browns won. I want to see them win it. All of a sudden, everybody's starting to pull for the Browns. I have a feeling that this team is going to be slept on. People are going to forget about how good this team actually is because there's not many missing pieces from that playoff run a few years ago. Just the wrong ones. You got, I think, AB making some, like you said, some really quiet moves, but also some really powerful moves. And there's not a whole lot of other movement in the AFC North right now, if you think about it. I mean, the Steelers signed Pat Pete, who's like 38 years old. But other than that, there's really not been a whole lot of movement.
They also let Devin Bush walk. They let a couple of linebackers walk on that team.
I do like the Bengals signing
Miles
Orlando
Jack.
Brown.
He's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like the AFC North and then just the NFL in general. A lot of teams are just kind of emptying the cupboards and kind of trying to go after it again, while a lot of other teams are in desperation mode, like the Saints, like the Broncos, where they're just trying to load up now. Even the Browns trying to load up now to win now, because that's really what it is. And when you think about kind of the fallout even from this year. Look how much has changed just in 2 seasons to where Baker Mayfield is now the poster child for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, and he's worn 4 different jerseys in the last calendar year. You know, like it's crazy to think that exactly 1 year ago today, the Browns still had him on their roster. So
Baker
he's
Bros
played
still
for
have a
4
lot of,
different. He's worn
jerseys
4
to pick
different
from.
jerseys in the last calendar year. It's crazy to think.
So I said the Baker Bros have plenty of jerseys to pick from.
Just the fall from grace from him. And you had so many people defending him in that situation last year saying, I feel bad for Baker. Can you believe what the Browns are doing to him? They're taking on this guy, this sex offender. And, you know, say what you want about whatever he did off the field. And, you know, rightfully so. You can say whatever you want. It's going to come with the territory for the next 10 years. As a Browns fan, you're going to have to root for this guy, but you're also going to have to deal with the consequences, you know, of everybody talking about what he did off the field. But he's still head and shoulders above what we had with Baker Mayfield. And I think what you're going to see this offseason and going into next year, you're going to see him elevate the play of the people around him. And now you've got guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I feel like is going to elevate his play. He's going to take his game to the next level. Amari Cooper already, you saw what he can do last year. He's still, 28 years old. You've got guys still, Njoku. They've got weapons. There's a possibility I've heard of if there's no big-time buyers for Kareem Hunt, he might just come back to Cleveland on a hometown discount for a 1-year deal and just run it back again. So, if they end up with most of those same weapons back,
on a 1-year deal too,
and then you add a guy like Elijah Moore, and then you stacked up the defense the way they have. Tommy, talk about that defensive line. Good Lord. They've added 4 guys now to that D line.
That's what I said. And they also got Anthony Walker back for a 1-year deal.
Yep.
So, again, sometimes those one-year contracts speak more than anything because Anthony Walker is in the locker room. He's got a captain's patch. He knows what this franchise is trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. And with these free agency signings, it got other guys talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like once guys, hell, even Odell was entertaining that running it back with the Browns. Now that Baker's out of there, but what would you say to that?
I don't think the Browns have much interest in that, but I would say there are a lot of Browns fans who would like to dust off their Odell jerseys. I'm not one of them. I remember what he did that last year. I remember his dad posting the video and trying to tear the locker room apart. There was so much division in that locker room that last year that he was on the roster. I'll say this. Would I completely disown the team if they brought him back? No. But am I in the corner of wanting it to happen? No. I'm good on that. That train has that ship has set sail already. The guy's had 3 ACL surgeries, 2 in the last year. I'm good on that. I'll be all right. What do you think?
I think again, feed Chubb. I don't give a shit about receivers.
Who cares who you're throwing the ball to? Feed Chubb.
RPO
to the man.
RPO. Play action. You got a lot of taste that can come out of this coming season that, again, you have to keep an eye out on. I'm excited about hearing that the Hall of Fame game is going to be at, with the Browns in Canton. I think that's a big deal, too. It should be a good time.
Browns Jets. First preseason game of the year. We going to go? What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
We should make that a trip. I think that should be a trip. All of us need to go. At least.
Well, I just need to figure out what hotel Aaron Rodgers is staying in, and we can make it a trip. Come out of hiding, Bilbo.
So I do have one other Browns topic. Have you heard them talking about this new stadium? You heard any kind of inklings about this? There's so much rumor and talk about what it could possibly be because the Haslams obviously are going to ask Cleveland to extend the sin tax, and the NFL is going to cover some of it, but most of it's going to be on the Haslams to cover the foot. They're going to have to foot the bill. the Haslams are trying to buy the land next to the stadium. Like that, all that lakefront property, they're trying to buy that whole lakefront. You know what that tells me, Tommy? That tells me they're trying to build a dome. What do you think about a dome for the Browns?
Yeah, it lends itself well if you're gonna go to a Kenny Chesney concert or something, but I don't think the Browns are gonna be making any use of a dome.
I think that's
That's for
the
cold months.
idea. They want to be able to use that facility for more than just 10 times a year, 11 times a year, like they can't really schedule concerts there because of the outdoor elements that are involved. What if you get a downpour in the middle of July? You don't know what could happen in Ohio. So even concerts are at the subject of weather cancellations. If you build an indoor facility, you could not only host events year round, but you could host like Final Four events. You could host the Big Ten championship. You could host all kinds of different events inside that arena. The possibilities are endless, especially if they were to build what they're talking about building, which is like basically a village around the stadium to make it kind of similar to what they have in Minnesota, what they have in Indianapolis. Because of their small cities, their smaller communities, they've made it more of like an entire experience around the stadium as opposed to like making you sprawl out and go to the different areas of the city. They bring all the experiences around that stadium. And that's what I think the Haslams are looking into. So I would be pretty interested in it. I think it'd be pretty cool.
I've seen a lot of people talk about, especially in the music industry, about having the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just might as well put itself on wheels and follow the acts because a lot of touring acts don't come to Cleveland. And I don't think it was just Cleveland in general that a lot of tours kind of skip. I mean, yeah, remember when you schedule touring, it goes in little pockets. And these days, even more times than none, a lot of touring acts, they'll schedule a stadium. And then in that shot, they'll schedule the smaller venues en route to that stadium. That way they can, hit all those venues rather than go up to Cleveland, play play the Rocket Mortgage Field House, and then go to the Detroit Little Caesars Arena. I mean, like a lot of times, you can lose your ass on those. But if you have a dome stadium to where you can have these acts play there, sell out, again, it brings a whole nother aspect to your touring acts, music scene. Hell, even WrestleMania could be at the could be at the Browns Stadium. That'd be something.
Well, and it can help justify the expense of building such a large facility if you bring more than just that facility. You bring the village aspect into it. You bring the different shops, the different restaurants, the different, different places where people could, intermix and, enjoy themselves, do different things around the stadium that doesn't just involve football. But that's activities you could do before the game, make it an entire day experience. And, if the Haslams own all of that, they're benefiting from all of that. And then they make that an experience that you can do during a concert as well. I mean, it just, to me, it makes a lot of sense, especially for Cleveland. Like they need something like that. There's no place, like you said, when there's a major tour and they're coming through the area, there's no place to play in Cleveland. So that would make a lot of sense to me, but we'll see where it goes. I don't know. What do you think, Greggy? You want a dome?
I mean, either way is fine with me. I like the cold weather, tough football city stuff, but I also don't like freezing my ass off when I'm there. So
yeah, I mean, it would make, honestly, when they're I hate saying shit like this, but when they're 5-10 and it's a December game, it would honestly be packed with Browns fans. It wouldn't matter, like when we go up there during a December game and they're 5-10, there's barely anybody there because it's freaking -3 with wind chill and like nobody wants to sit out in that shit. But if it was nice and it was a controlled environment, shit, they probably pack that place. It'd be sellout crowds every weekend.
I think there should be a study in correlation to the poor NFL fan. And I'm not talking about like the ones that put up with the drudgery of cheering on a team like the Browns or the Lions or shit like that. I mean like fiscally poor to where, the people that get to afford to go to the Cleveland Browns game. I sat there and I calculated especially after the Browns beat the Bengals on Monday Night Football. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's what it's like to win in prime time, baby. That was awesome. And I kind of did some calculations. I was like, now I'm 2-29 at the Browns First Energy Stadium, lifetime. And I thought about it. I was like, the record probably be a lot higher if you actually went to games that weren't somebody tried to discard at last minute. Like, God, the Browns are terrible.
Oh,
Here's
they're
these
awful.
tickets for $50.
They are
Who's
just
stupid enough to go? Well, with enough JD, I'm stupid enough to go.
Well, I mean, we've all been there, those end of the season games where, hey, I don't really want to go to this game. I got season tickets. This isn't one of my games. I really don't care. But here, you go ahead. You guys go. Here, I got a couple extra tickets. I got some parking passes. We've been there before, boys. Remember that? Cousins Christmas? That was fun.
I mean, yeah, there's a difference between going to tailgate at, the big games where there's just a big ass sausage, Polish sausage with some kraut and everything on it, and all sorts of yummies going on in the Mooney lot. And then there's the games I go to.
Give me one of them cheese
where like two guys are sharing some salsa verde dip from Chipotle and some chips. I'm like, yeah, this is a great time.
Good stuff. So you wanted to talk about WrestleMania, right?
You can talk about WrestleMania. That's a big thing going on.
Yeah.
I like.
Next, I do like to talk about WrestleMania. What's the story?
Not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
What's the storylines this year? For those of us who haven't been paying attention lately, you and Greggy can kind of talk a little bit about this. What's going on with this year's WrestleMania? I mean, that's the next big event, right?
Yeah, I think since it's kind of crazy to believe also, you look back at your memories around this time, we're about 3 years removed from the pandemic, and you're still trying to just get a little more sense of normalcy. But in terms of wrestling, there was a lot of people, even the lapsed fan who just kind of were watching wrestling just because it was a habit for them on Monday night. During the pandemic, I think a lot of those people fell off, including myself. I could probably count on one hand how many episodes of Monday Night Raw from 1993 to 2020 I probably missed.
Yeah.
But, up to that point, when they emptied the arenas, the fans are more than 3/4 of the entire show. You know what I mean? Like, as much as people try to focus off of it, the fans are as much part of the show as the action going on in the ring. It's what the wrestlers kind of
they feed off of that.
Yeah, that's kind of how they create their art.
Yeah.
It's feeding off response, playing, ring psychology. But with that, when you lose that aspect of it, it's a tough sit. It really is. It takes some, great athletes to kind of be able to remove the entertainment aspect of it and then strip it down to its core, the technical aspect, which I kind of enjoyed in a way. During that time at the Raymond James, where it's supposed to be WrestleMania at the Raymond James Stadium, they did it inside the Thunderdome thing. And at that time, they did the first matchup between Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair at that time, which I was pretty excited for. But now, fast forward to this year, Rhea Ripley wins the Women's Royal Rumble, which gives her a shot to face whatever champion that she chooses at WrestleMania. And in this instance, a returning Charlotte Flair, who came back and upended Ronda Rousey for the Women's Championship. Oh. Now, Rhea Ripley, a couple years more into her career, she's really found her footing. They're going to have that rematch. And, some people who have really enjoyed that bloodline storyline with Sami Zayn and the Usos and Roman Reigns. One of the matches is Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Usos for the tag team championships, who a lot of people felt that should go on last. But, I believe Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair probably will go on last on night one of WrestleMania. So,
I think everybody wants to know, though, about this Seth Rollins versus Logan Paul match, though. I mean, what's going on with that? Tommy's like, I don't give a shit about Logan Paul.
No. I like Logan Paul a lot for a guy who's had 3 matches they're probably the best damn first three matches of any wrestler I've ever seen. But at the same time, I think some of the people who've called him out, even Seth Rollins, you know, yeah, you can have three great matches when you have Shawn Michaels as your trainer, doing one-on-one time with him, being able to kind of learn as you go, and you got some hell of a teachers down there in NXT helping you along. But it takes two to tango, and the Paul brothers are they're those type of guys who give them enough rope and they'll hang you. The expression. I don't want to talk about them because they might have flashbacks of walking through jungles of Japan or something like that. But the Paul brothers, again, they can't help themselves, and I think Logan Paul had turned himself heel just with his presence again. WrestleMania is a sacred spot to get on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a lot of guys, it used to make their entire year as far as the payoff was concerned. So you worked your ass off to get involved into a storyline that got you on that card. So even to today, not so much the superstars draw the event itself draws, but a lot of guys who are in that old school mentality kind of resent a guy like Logan Paul, who's just stepping in there and being able to have a spot against a guy like Seth Rollins. And, if there's anybody that could have that type of match with Logan Paul, it's a guy like Seth Rollins, who definitely he's been an MVP. It's just his cackling Joker-esque, whatever the hell his character was trying to be, is the worst thing of all time. It really is.
It's just not doing it for you.
It's like Evil Doink without the makeup on. It's just like I watched a little bit of Monday Night Raw to where he interrupts Logan Paul, and he's wearing some like Shania Twain fucking lace gloves with leopard print and sunglasses, and he's like, Logan,
what the hell?
And I'm just like, bro, like, you want me to fucking cheer for you? It's terrible. And so I was like, no, I don't write that match off. It's just, it'll be fun. It'll be what it is.
Right?
Is WrestleMania shaping up the way that I thought it was when they first announced it was going to be in LA? I definitely don't think so. And one of the reasons being is a lot of people were kind of putting their money that The Rock and Roman Reigns were going to do this storyline with the head of the table, the tribal chief storyline, that bloodline feud. But at the end of the day, in my honest opinion, they talk about how much the WWE would need The Rock. But right now, I think The Rock needs WWE. Yeah. My boy Dwayne, he's had some negative press, especially with he got a lot of heat with comic book nerds because he was trying to force his hand when he was doing Black Adam.
Oh.
And he was cutting Zachary Levi's cameos out of the movie to center the DC extended universe around himself and Henry Cavill Superman.
Uh-oh.
And then once James Gunn kind of was put in charge of DC, they were like, you know what, we're going to kind of go a different direction. So a lot of this is coming out about The Rock and how his attitude was towards trying to drive the DC universe in a certain direction. A lot of people didn't want it to go. Then you couple that with the record low 200 and something thousand people for the XFL ratings this past weekend.
Ooh.
It's like,
hey, I was watching.
I would never have Dwayne Johnson or The Rock fatigue, but like, man, he's kind of burning the candle at both ends right now.
Yeah.
In all respects. So I would think a shot in the arm would be to get out in front of, Hollywood and all the people and, kind of get back on the good side of everybody. Not that he's got any heat with Hollywood or people, but it is out there. Like I don't really, I'm not Mr. TMZ, but even I can smell it from here, Rock, and I can smell what you're cooking, brother. You know what I mean? But in that stead, I kind of love what WWE's done with the build up to WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes coming over from his ventures outside the company and helping start AEW, and then kind of leaving them and coming back only to be super over and then get injured. Comes back from injury, and it kind of reminds me of that Triple H story from 2001 when he came off the quadricep injury, came back, won the Rumble, and defeated Chris Jericho in a forgettable main event at WrestleMania 18 after they had to go on after Rock and Hogan. Poor guy.
Jeez.
Have you ever seen that match?
Which one?
The Rock versus Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 18.
I believe so. That was right after Hogan came back from WCW, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit after that.
That was not very good. Because Hogan didn't have very much stamina.
Well, here's the thing. There's two trains of thought. If you watch that match with the sound off, it's the worst professional wrestling match you ever watched in your life. You watch that sound with surround sound, and you listen to those 68,000 people eat out of the hand of Hulk Hogan and The Rock for fucking 20 minutes. It's one of the best matches of all time. It really is just it's a masterpiece. It really is if I were to try to explain what professional wrestling is in an artistic form, or if I try to move somebody through the basics of what you're trying to convey when you do a professional wrestling match, that's the fucking match you showed.
Yeah?
It really is the best match. One of the best matches of all time. But I forget what we were talking about. WrestleMania still?
Yeah, we were talking about WrestleMania. And you were talking about The Rock and needing, his...
Yeah, Cody
moment.
Rhodes. That's where we were. Cody Rhodes.
Then you went to Cody Rhodes.
He comes back, wins the Royal Rumble. And now he's punched his ticket to the main event against Roman Reigns, who, man, I applaud WWE because it was a slippery slope getting Cody Rhodes to WrestleMania and keeping the fans behind him. For the simple fact that, one of the reasons that kind of hooked me as a lapsed fan back into watching was the Bloodline storyline with Sami Zayn and the Usos, which, again, for the uninitiated, Roman Reigns is the longest reigning WWE champion in modern history, 950 days counting.
Jeez.
And, yeah, so again, I mean, when you're talking
3
days
years.
back in San Martino and Hulk Hogan would carry the belt for 3 or 4 years.
That's crazy.
He hasn't been pinned since 2019. And that's what a lot of people thought, that The Rock would be the perfect matchup for that. But in the past year, again, he's been flanked by his cousins, the Usos, who are the sons of Rikishi.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes. So the Bloodline is kind of a story centered around the Samoan dynasty of professional wrestling, with The Rock, Alpha and Sika, the Wild Samoans, Chai Chief Peter Maivia, Yokozuna. Again, when you go to Rikishi, who used to be Junior Fatu, who teamed with Alpha Fatu and, part of the Samoan SWAT team. I believe it's Alpha that is Roman Reigns' father.
No shit. That's cool.
Yes, and Solo Sikoa, the Usos are the sons of Rikishi. And in this Bloodline storyline, they're trying to tell that the Usos are the tag champions. The Roman Reigns is the head of the table. He's followed up by the wise man Paul Heyman, who's the best manager in wrestling right now, and has been for a long time. But with that, these guys just kind of bask and in their own greatness, and that's kind of, they've run ruckshot over the WWE. And Sami Zayn, who was a heel at the time, kind of wanted to butter up to Roman Reigns and kind of get the rub off of him, to the point where it turned Sami into a good guy because people were just loving his antics with the Bloodline. to the point where, Roman Reigns and the Bloodline beat up his best friend Kevin Owens to the point where it was enough for Sami Zayn to turn his back on Roman Reigns and tell him that he didn't want to do his bidding anymore. So a lot of fans really wanted that to be the main event of WrestleMania, which I think WWE did a better job of doing the Elimination Chamber, which was WWE's last pay-per-view before WrestleMania. That actually took place in Montreal, Quebec, which subsequently was Sami Zayn's hometown. So they did this huge Montreal, if my favorite thing about pro wrestling, especially in the late 90s, was when you kind of had the American versus Canada storyline going on with Bret Hart, where was a good guy in Canada and he was a bad guy in the United States, and vice versa. To where, like, if you were a good guy wrestler and you came out, Canadians booed you, and if you were a bad guy wrestler, the Canadians loved you. And I just always thought Canadian crowds were the some of the best WWE crowds. So I watched that premium live event, the Elimination Chamber, with Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns. And again, for the Lapsed fan, that was an incredible night for WWE. So they do have a lot of momentum going on right now. They were able to do that storyline, and they kind of made it to where Cody Rhodes his storyline is he's trying to finish his story of where he's the only where no Rhodes has ever held the WWE Championship. That's the big thing. He's got Dusty Rhodes had a picture of himself holding the WWF Championship with WWF Championship in 1979 in a match against Billy Graham, in which they did the switcheroo where they thought Dusty had won the title. But that's the only picture they have of Dusty Rhodes holding the WWF Championship. And I guess Cody Rhodes had said that picture was on the mantle at the Rhodes household. So Cody Rhodes is on this mission to do what his dad wasn't able to, finish his story and become the WWE champion at the biggest stage of them all. And, in his way is, the tribal chief Roman Reigns, who has a historic run with the title. And it's good old fashioned professional wrestling.
Yeah.
That's the stuff you miss. The storylines write themselves to where even Roman Reigns kind of cut Cody Rhodes this past Monday with a scathing promo where he's talking about, every time you run into adversity, you run away from it. You once were Stardust. You didn't like that, so you left. Then you started a company with your buddies, and you couldn't get over in that, so you ran away. Then you came back, and then you got over in this company, but then your little pet popped on you, and you weren't able to hold up because you're not built for this like I am, and it's just, they just go back and forth to where it really is poetic in a way. You can say what you want about script writers and stuff like that, but you can tell the guys that kind of have their own liberties,
right,
and able to kind of do their own thing, and that's kind of what you're getting a dose of in this build up for WrestleMania. But
so that's kind of like the most intriguing storyline. What do you think has the potential to be the best match?
Well, I'd have to think more about what the matches are, because one of the matches is almost against Brock Lesnar, which is a 7'4" Nigerian guy that moves like a tree trunk against Brock Lesnar. So that
7'4"
should turn. Yeah, but it's gonna be a rough day at the office. I guess Brock Lesnar didn't want to work with Bray Wyatt. That was the rumor and innuendo. And then he didn't want to work with Lashley or something like that, to where, it's gotten to the point where they're just putting this new guy in with Brock Lesnar. There's no business being in that spot. I mean, I know, no offense to Omos or whatever, but yeah,
poor guy.
That is not. So you got that match. I talked about the Usos against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who are recently reunited. I think that has the potential to be probably one of the best matches at WrestleMania. My pick for match of the night, because WrestleMania, I think WWE's did a great thing by splitting it up into 2 nights now. I was kind of hesitant at first, but when you're watching almost an 8-hour WrestleMania on a Sunday, from 5 to after midnight, it's a tough sit.
Yeah.
And they learned that by, exhausting crowds to where public transportation wasn't even available after WrestleMania was over in New Jersey because it didn't end till like 1 a.m. So people were stranded, stranded after the show. So they've kind of learned their lessons. They split it up into 2 nights. So night 1 will have a smaller card. Night 2 will also have a smaller card. So again, you get it in, get it out, and go home. I think night 1, the main event will be Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair, and I think that'll be the best match of night 1.
Okay.
Greggy,
you got any input over here on this WrestleMania thing? I mean, you've been keeping track, right?
I actually have not.
No?
I watch a little bit here and there. I haven't kept up very much on it lately. But the Bloodline storyline, dude, that stuff is too good. Like,
that has me intrigued,
well,
and I haven't been paying attention at all.
Well, it's like Tommy said, during the pandemic and stuff, a lot of wrestling fans fell off, and he was one, and I was one, because it's just kind of like it got stale. And, it wasn't really capturing my attention anymore.
Right.
And then, as time went on, I would just keep seeing, little reels and clips here and there on WWE, on Facebook, on Instagram about, Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn this, Roman Reigns that. And I'm like, what is going on here? And, I had to check it out. And, man, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so good. I can't. That's the main thing that I'm looking forward to for WrestleMania, seeing how that storyline comes to an end or continues or whatever they're doing with it.
So, how is Sami Zayn involved in the storyline between? So, it's a match between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, but how's Sami Zayn worked into the storyline here?
Because Sami Zayn was a part of the Bloodline, and after the Roman Reigns left in the ultimatum of attacking Kevin Owens or showing his loyalty to Roman Reigns, he decided to turn his back on Roman Reigns.
No. Okay. That makes sense.
So then Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, Roman gave Sami a shot at the championship at Elimination Chamber, and Sami Zayn was unsuccessful. So it's like we talked about, Cody Rhodes kind of encouraged Sami Zayn to finish his story and was kind of cheerleading Sami Zayn on his way to the championship in hopes that the fans didn't turn on Cody and Sami and kind of ruin the main event for WrestleMania. So they got past that to where they're now able to focus more so on Cody and Roman, and Sami kind of went off to do his thing with Kevin Owens and then the Usos, which again is I don't really think is a consolation prize, because the whole thing kind of really revolved around Jey Uso acceptance of Sami Zayn into the Bloodline, while Jimmy was,
dude,
best friends with Sami.
Nate, let me tell you this, man. They have a video that they've compiled that's called the history of Sami Zayn and the Bloodline on WWE for their YouTube page. Go check that out, dude. It'll pretty much run down everything you need to know, and I bet you'll be interested in this match for WrestleMania after that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go check that out for sure. You said that's on YouTube?
Yeah.
You know what else is on YouTube? Heart of Ohio Sports. Make sure you subscribe. But yeah, Tommy, you were talking about wrestling games. Greggy and I were talking about what do we want to talk about on the show, and you had mentioned that the new WWE game just came out, the 2K23, right?
Yeah, I think.
Did you get your hands on that yet?
I have not. One of the things that, just like with professional wrestling in general, the games itself have suffered just because 2K have really put their focus more so into their NBA line, stuff like that, to where that's humming along pretty well. But I think a lot of wrestling fans were kind of pissed at 2K for not giving any. They basically gave you in 2K22 the same game that they made you wait for 2 years after the release of 2K20, just without the bugs. So now they came out. Yeah. So that's,
So
that's where you kind of got to start at. You had WWE 2K20 that came out in 2019, and that was your placeholder for WWE games for about 2.5 years, while they tried to work the bugs out of whatever engine they were using to build the game. So then they came out with WWE 2K22, which is basically just a bug-free version of 2K20. I wish I said bug-free. That's being generous too. But now WWE 2K23, it seems like not so much that they revamped the system, but they've added some elements and kind of stripped it back to where it's a little more simple, to where again it's a lot more user friendly. It's one of those games that like anybody, like we talked about, the lapsed wrestling fan, because whether we want to admit it or not, in today's market, they really plug on the nostalgia button no matter what it is pop culturally.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, again, hey, pick up a wrestling game where you can play as all these legends and stuff that you used to watch because nobody we got's over. You know what I mean? I think John
Exactly.
Cena's actually the cover athlete, and he's not. Well, he's active on the roster right now because he's going to be at WrestleMania. But again, you know what I'm driving at.
Yeah.
So with that, they've kind of added some elements to the game that you can just kind of pick it up and start playing if you're a lapsed fan. And then, they'll get people that have been committed to that brand of game. They still kind of keep the similar controls, but a lot of features that are more online friendly, which I think a lot of people have been waiting for, because that's just the way things have leaned. There's a lot of people want to do online games with their friends. And wrestling games, I just haven't really been too friendly online, in my opinion.
I would say wrestling games lend themselves to good old fashioned 1v1. Let's sit in the room. Let's play a wrestling game together. That's the best way to play a wrestling game. Am I right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's not really the best to play online because it's too glitchy sometimes. I feel like you get stuck with, even if somebody has good internet, it's still kind of glitchy. It still doesn't really work very well. I feel like the best way to play a good wrestling game is 1v1. And you were talking about, just classics. And speaking of classics, what do you think are some of the best wrestling games of all time? Obviously, you can talk about 2K and this franchise as a whole.
How many?
They've kind of
5?
taken over. They've kind of taken over the WWE, video game world over the last decade or so. But before that, there was a lot of different wrestling games out there on the market. And I'd say, there was some really good ones back in the day. That's when I was into wrestling when I was younger. I remember the first game that I had for the Nintendo 64 that wasn't Madden was WCW NWO. Was it World Tour? I think was the first one. And then Revenge was the second one. So I had the first one, the World Tour. Yeah, that one was man, that was a lot of fun.
Did you ever rake Sting's eyes until his face paint came off?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. That was one of my favorite things about the game. There's so many different like little Easter eggs about those games, but
what I loved about World Tour was the roster.
Yeah,
Like because it was World Tour, it was
so
just a
many
huge
guys
roster.
from all over the place.
And then you had fake Sting. That was always cool.
Oh yeah,
I loved it when they had more relevant things that were current to the time in the game.
La Parca.
I mean, that is interesting that they would actually have wrestlers that were, you're in the infancy of the internet to where there'd be names on there that you wouldn't recognize unless you had like the wrestling magazines and stuff like that. So it was, man, it was such an the internet boom was such an awesome time to really live in.
Oh, for
Just because
sure.
you were still grounded into the real world, but you could escape into, a limited amount of internet space if you were patient enough.
Oh man, speaking of like, just imagine how much it's evolved over the last 20 years. Think about even 10 years ago. I saw a meme yesterday that said this was memes 10 years ago, and it was like this, like the penguin and like the frog in the middle of the screen, and like the dumb shit we used to meme about, back in like 10 years ago. 20 years ago, shit, we were memeing about some of the stupidest shit you couldn't even like. it wasn't even they weren't even memes. It was just us being goofy as shit because we didn't know how to use the internet to its full potential, you know? So I just think about all
Yeah,
those games that were out back then, and I don't know. We used to clown a lot of those games back in the day, but that was all we had. I mean, now you literally have one game that you can play for WWE as far as that, you know. Back then, there was at least two options that you had. You had a WCW and then you had a WWF option as well. So,
I tell you what, I would wear out the pages on a strat guide. Like there was just something about back in the day when you would
oh,
buy a strat guide for
oh,
WCW Revenge, and they would have like a bio of every single character and the rundown of their moves, and you're just like,
from the unknown
ah,
reaches of the world.
and it's just God, it was good stuff. We talk about top five wrestling games. I know WCW versus NWO Revenge definitely has to
Oh,
be in that discussion.
absolutely. For sure.
And like, I actually, Greg, you'd be interested to hear this. For a long time, even when I was a kid, I remember the cover of that game had Hulk Hogan, who was the head of the NWO Black and White, or Hollywood Hogan, I should say. Goldberg, who was the face of WCW.
Yep.
Kevin Nash,
Mm-hmm.
who was the NWO Wolfpack, and then Raven, who again Raven, he was the head of the he was the head of the flock.
The head of the
But even
flock.
back, but even back then, like I loved Raven, but I kind of was like, why the fuck is Raven on the cover of WCW Revenge? I guess in an interview that or a snippet off of Twitter I seen just like a year or so ago, I guess Raven was asked that question. And I guess the guy that was the head developer or the creator of that game, his favorite wrestler was Raven. So he
Oh
brought him
God.
in to put him on the cover of the game.
That's great.
So I guess that's the reason why Raven's on the cover of that game.
That's good. You know,
But
another
if
one
we're
that was
going,
really good,
yeah,
WrestleMania 2000. That was probably one of my favorites. That was like one of the first ones where you could customize a lot of things, like the entrance theme and like, customize your own wrestler, make him come out and have his own kind of character, persona, that kind of thing. I don't know. That was the
I think
customization in that game was to the next level.
I agree that WrestleMania 2000 was a nice placeholder because, in my opinion, it goes
But
revenge.
No Mercy was,
Yeah, then you go into the WWF, you port that over to the WWF, and they don't really change the game too much.
yeah.
They kind of just give you the WWF version of the predecessor. Then you go into No Mercy, then you just fucking
Oh,
that's a whole new ball game, Bubba.
that's cream of the crop right there. That's a great game.
I'd have to say that's my number one.
Yeah. Okay.
No
Wait.
Mercy.
So let's go
Again,
through this top five. You were talking top five wrestling games of all time. Let's go Tommy's top five. What do you
my
got?
top
Number one, you
five.
said No Mercy.
Let's go 5-1.
All right, so 5-1.
So number 5 on my list would be WCW versus NWO Revenge.
All right.
And then number 4 for me would probably have to be WWE SmackDown versus Raw. Then number 3
That's a
would
good
have to
one.
be WWF Here Comes the Pain.
All right.
Number 2, I this can be split into two answers, and I'll justify why. Number 2 is WWF Royal Rumble or WWF Raw for the Super Nintendo. The reason why I say you can switch either of them out is because it's the same damn game. It's just one of them's a year later, where it's WWF Raw, and you have a chair and a bucket you can hit him with, and the ref quits if you beat him up enough. To where he just throws his hands and he leaves, and then it's like a no disqualification match. That game was God. That game was awesome. But yeah, WWF Royal Rumble 19 for Super Nintendo. Not the Sega Genesis one.
Nope.
Sega Genesis one does have Hulk Hogan on it though.
Yeah, well, obviously we can't do that then.
But
so you got No Mercy, and then WWF Royal Rumble or WWF Raw for the SNES. Then you got WWF Here Comes the Pain, WWE SmackDown versus Raw, and then WCW versus NWO Revenge. That's a fucking solid list, Bubba. That's pretty well done. I like that.
yeah,
Greggy,
what you got?
Man, it's so hard for me to try to rank them. It's pretty much going to end up being the same pretty much as Tommy's list because every game that I've ever played has been with Tommy.
Yeah.
So, like, it's never been like I went out on my own wrestling adventure or anything like that. It's always been, Cash Hall and Greggy Cool, St. Gregory, whatever you want to call him as he progressed throughout the years.
St. Gregory,
oh,
I love it.
That's just
the first
epic
the
rivalry.
the first created guys were the boxer Greg Ken, like the dog. And I was the bulldog. I was the bulldog Tom Hall.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
The bulldog and the boxer. OG WCW, fresh out of the power plants, our career begins. All right, good. Sorry for interrupting. What were you gonna say? Number 5. What do you got?
What you got, Greggy?
No, man, I said I was just gonna match Tommy's list.
Just gonna match it?
Yes, I heard.
He's like, yep, sounds good. I like that. That's
I
good.
mean, it's not even really. If I sit here and think about it, it's not gonna change anything. So,
honestly,
Those are pretty damn solid
you
games.
guys
bro.
don't have any 2K games in there. I noticed the trend.
that's because they haven't been good.
They haven't been good. There hasn't
they
been
need to
one
pick it up.
2K game that you liked.
Some of them been good. 2K 14, whatever one Stone Cold Steve Austin was on the cover of. That one was pretty good.
Okay. Honestly, I never played Here Comes the Pain, so I can't put that one up there, but both of those ones for the SNES were like, they had to be on there somewhere for me because I had Royal Rumble and I probably logged so many hours on that game as a kid.
That is such a beautiful memory. Like,
oh man.
I remember, like I said, I
playing
can
as
remember
Doink the
so much.
Clown and like all the different characters in that game doing the Royal Rumble. And man, you talk about memories right there. I can remember this right now. I'm smelling the basement as I'm playing the game right now in my head, like.
So in Tiffin, they used to be over by the IGA. There was a little brown building as you went down 101. It was a video like a video store. And when I was a kid, I remember I had rented a Nintendo copy.
There used to be a pizza place right next to it, didn't there? It was across the street from where the BMV is now. Right?
That used to be at that time. That used to be the Dark Horse Saloon or something like that. Wasn't it, Greggy?
Yeah, it had a weird name like
the
that.
Red Horse.
The Dark Red Horse or
I
something
think
like
it was
that.
the Red Horse.
But if you went, and then it turned into Cameo Pizza eventually. But before that, like I said, there was a rental place that you could go to, and I remember getting that Super WrestleMania game.
I remember Kelly's Northtown.
Renting games, that was a
Northtown
whole
all
nother
the time.
topic for another day.
That was a good old video renting place right there.
What's that?
Kelly's Northtown.
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that one?
God, that was a good place too.
Uh-huh.
South Side Video, that was a good one.
He always had the good games, I feel like. There was a few of them that were good for videos, and there was a couple of them that were good for games. That was the one that I always remember was good for games.
How about
what
this?
Was the one?
Did you?
There was one as you were going out of town on 101, right before you
That's what I'm talking about.
Right before you get to the junkyard, it's like
Yeah,
a
that's what
house
I'm talking
now.
about.
Okay, so there was another one that I'm talking about right there by the old BMV, or right there by where the BMV is now, but across the street where you're talking about. But
Fuck, you used to be able to rent videos inside IGA.
oh yeah, for sure.
They had, like
I remember
right
the
there, had,
farm.
like Valentine's Day cards and shit next to it.
You remember the farm where you used to be able to rent videos inside there?
Oh yeah,
They had some pretty good videos all the way up until the very end, man. We're going back.
farm-
We're going back.
but,
back.
they. How about this? Do you remember where? AJ's had a second location down by the old BP? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's some
Well,
kind
even
of like
like-
crystal place now. You can go in there and buy rocks and crystals and plants and stuff. Yeah.
Even well, if you go across the street, you can buy rocks there too.
You know, oh, damn it, Tommy.
Different type of rock.
Crystals and rocks and everything. Yep. Damn
But
it.
way back in the
Okay.
90s, that used to be a video store called BR Video. That
Yeah.
fucking place was good too.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, back to the list.
Back to the list. No, if I had to put a list together, honestly, I would put WCW versus NWO Revenge has got to be towards the top for me. And then the what was the one? Probably, yeah, No Mercy is probably right up there at the top of the list. But I don't know how to put them in order, honestly. When I think about like the order of how they need to go in, it's like, shit, that's really hard for me. For me, the nostalgia factor is it goes to Royal Rumble. That's the number one for me because of the, I can just think about, it's just so, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside just thinking about that game.
I would say honorable mention.
As the game loads up and it's like, yeah, let's go. All right, I'm ready.
Yeah, that little rainbow thing is like,
yeah, and it's just like, yeah, let's go. All right, let's go. Ready?
I think about that type of stuff.
If we had to put together a list, though, I'd say No Mercy was my number one. WCW versus NWO Revenge was probably my two. Or I'm sorry, Royal Rumble was my one. Revenge was two. No Mercy was three. And then I'd probably put like, I don't know. I never played Here Comes the Pain, so I don't know how good it is. But SmackDown versus Raw was a great game. I love that game.
Yeah.
I played that for PS2 all the time.
SmackDown versus Raw, fucking.
Hey, Greggy's the treasure.
What's that?
Look at Greggy. He's a treasure.
You can't see me.
Oh, you can't see. Aw.
I just wanted to come hang out, guys.
He just wanted to hang out with us. So, we do have,
Hi, kitty cat.
we got about 3 more weeks until baseball season starts. What's your plans in the next couple weeks, Tommy? You got anything going on?
Lots going on.
Lots going on. When's the next MMA event?
I believe BCM Promotions will be doing.
They do the grapple thing coming up here pretty soon, right?
Yeah, that's April 15th.
Yeah.
And then in May will be Mansfield Mayhem at the Mixed Martial Arts and Arts and Crafts Center at the Richland County Fairgrounds. I think that's May 13th. So that should be another doozy.
Nice.
Baseball season get here. Hopefully, schedule some Monday, Wednesday type games. But those games are normally like at 4:30. But
Yeah. 5 o'clock.
I think
First pitch.
the Aaron Steyrs of the world and those type of guys, they can have those chilly calls.
Tommy's like, I paid my dues. I'm good on baseball. You guys have fun with that. If you need me, call me when the playoffs start, okay?
No. Like I said, I actually had fun. Our first baseball game we did where we had Old Fort and Calvert, and
Oh, man,
it was a blustery ass day.
It was cold as shit that day. But it was a blast. That last season was so fun. Honestly, like when we covered baseball, I didn't know what we were getting into. We'd never done baseball before, but damn.
I
By the
don't
end of
think
it,
there's a I don't think there's been a better year of local baseball in the area in like 10 years, for real.
right. And we picked the best year to start. It was perfect. So I'm pretty excited about this year. I know there's a lot of good teams in the area. So we'll be getting started sometime mid-April. Look for our baseball schedule coming up here pretty soon. We'll be dropping that as soon as we get that completed. We're just kind of finalizing the details on that. But in the meantime, we got our shows going on. And we're just kind of taking it easy. I got something going on this weekend. Go see John Mayer up in Cleveland. Gonna hang out up there. What do you guys got going on? Anything fun?
Where's he the mayor of?
He's playing at Romo Fijo, the Rocket Mortgage Field House. Yeah, it's the solo tour. Chelsea got me tickets for Christmas, and I was pretty excited about that.
I
So-
think I'm supposed to be recording some tracks of my own this weekend.
Yeah. Speaking of recording, we're also putting together a little commercial here, fellas. Putting together a script for a commercial. You guys, what is it? Greggy's like, who? Me? No.
I sent you my feedback on that.
I did. I got that, and that's good stuff. I'm pretty excited about some other stuff we've got going on. What do you got? I mean, obviously you've got a lot going on with the family life. I've seen you post pictures of your daughter.
No, not at all.
No, nothing going on.
What family?
No family, nothing.
The family.
No,
As
I
I-
mean,
As I
recently,
stream
man,
from the toy
it's-
room.
I've just been noticing my boys are getting so damn big, dude. Like Isaac just turned 14. Gabe's gonna turn 17 tomorrow. Bailey will be 19 in 2 months. It's like, dude, time flies with kids. And when you post pictures of your little daughter and like I see pictures of her, I'm like, damn, dude, she's getting so big. Enjoy it, Bubba. I'm telling you right now, enjoy every minute of it because it goes so fast. Like you don't think it does because you're in the middle of it, but damn,
I
dude.
think it's been such a it's been a tough gap. It really has been coming into the 30s, especially like we talked about with the fuzziness that had been the past since 2019 to now. It's just been a blur. Then when you really like look at it in retrospect, it's like, God, you just lost such a huge chunk of time
Yeah.
to where a lot of people aren't going to know what normalcy was. And they're like, you know, there's some kids that were like 14 who went through like 3.5 years of like strange high school experiences, and those kids are going to carry that with them, into this next generation. And
When you think about
it's
the kind of society that we were already becoming to that point where we were starting to get into, people spending more time at home with the Netflix and chill and not really going out doing much, like not being, really friendly, not really going out to intermingle with each other much. And then you get the COVID, the pandemic, and everybody kind of hunkers down inside and everybody gets friendly with technology where hey, we have FaceTime. We can just FaceTime. Or, hey, we can do a Zoom meeting. We don't need to actually get together. Or, hey, we have these different comforts of technology where we don't need to be face-to-face with each other. And that has led to, I feel like, over the last 2 years, a breakdown in society when it comes to just being able to interact with people one-to-one, like face-to-face. When you're actually one-on-one with somebody, people just don't know how to act anymore. Like you see people
That's
going
such a-
crazy at big events, or just people just being socially awkward when you try to interact with them. Trying to take an order anymore with some people is like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I'm just trying to take your fucking order. Like I don't know. Sometimes people have gotten really weird since the pandemic, I feel like. Not everybody, but there's been just an increase in it. I'll say that.
I think it goes back to, again, we're entering an age where accountability and thinking for yourselves are kind of becoming obsolete. And to your point about, even interacting in the simplest way, my wife gets in a car accident this morning, she's driving behind somebody, and that person slows down. So in turn, she slows down, but the person behind Brooke does not slow down.
Yeah.
So they try to maneuver and get themselves out of harm's way, and in doing so, clip the back end of her car. So what does Brooke do? She kind of pulls over to the side, and then she notices the person continuing on their way. So Brooke reacts to where she chases this person down and kind of gets out in front of them and goes off to the side of the road. And the woman is pulls over and it's on the side of the road, and Brooke gets out of her car and she
Hello?
asks the woman, she's like, wants to exchange information. The woman's got her car window rolled all the way up, like, beep. And she's like, just fucking do that to Brooke. And Brooke's like, what the fuck? Like, okay, so she calls the cops, and instead of being able to actually just talk, again,
Right.
even when you have an accident, I don't let cooler head prevail most times, but you can still come to your senses. But to try to hit and skip, and then when you're confronted, you just kind of barricade yourself in, like, nope. It's like, look, you ass. now you've done messed up. You got no accountability for your act. Like, what were you gonna do? You were just gonna run off and be like, oh, honey, I fucking skipped the curb this morning on my way to work. Like, what the hell is wrong with people? It's like no accountability. You can't
Yeah.
think for yourself. It's a you talk about our kids getting older. Sometimes I'm just like, that's it. That's it for me. I'm sorry to introduce the first one to this.
Right? Like, whoops, my bad. Didn't mean to bring you into this mess.
But
I feel bad, honestly. Like, sometimes I think about the world that we're living in, the world that my kids are growing up into. And it's like, man, I feel bad for bringing them into this world. I really do.
it's just hard.
It's
It's
hard.
just hard. It's hard for anybody to be on the same page and kind of come up with their own identity. Because even when, I drone on and on about thinking for yourselves, no accountability, when we're actually part of that generation where the TV's telling us what's going on, where the newspapers telling us what's going on, we just kind of have like a short-sighted view to where all this information is being processed just by these media outlets that we have access to. So even with movies, we're able to communicate to each other and use references and kind of everyone wants the same shit.
Right.
Everyone kind of communicate in the same way to where jokes and everything were kind of real, you know, people were able to tell jokes to each other that like were passed down from person to person. And you just kind of now there's so much information to process to where like as a person raising a child, like we're having a, you know, Little Mermaid party where it's like my daughter's maybe seen the Little Mermaid once, won't sit through an entire Disney movie. Then the catalog of great movies and children's movies that we grew up with, kids don't have the attention span or don't want to watch that stuff to
No.
where they're missing out on what actual proficient writers and good storytellers are able to do with your imagination and also be able to convey storytelling and be able to, pick up how a good story is structured and the lessons learned from that to where you got just a fountain of misinformation on the YouTube to where any derelict is making their own shows, making their own rules. It's like
I feel
my
like
daughter
as
has a
kids get older, though, I feel like as they get older, they start to gain a little bit of interest for the nostalgia or for just the classics. Like they want to see why that was so popular. Oh, what was what led to people getting into that? Why do people get into that? And then they end up pursuing that. And that's what I'm seeing at work with some of the younger guys I work with. They're talking about some of the stuff that they're getting into, some of the movies that they're
it's
watching.
scary, man.
And I'm like, man, they're talking about movies that to me, it doesn't seem like those are classics. It seems like those are like, oh, that just came out a few years ago. No, they came out almost 20 years ago. And like, they're talking about them like, hey, I went back and watched, this movie or that movie. And I'm like, that movie didn't come out that long ago. 2004, 2006. Like, okay, I guess it did come out a while ago. Shit. Like, and then you talk about some of those classics, like the Disney classics. My kids would not sit through any of those when they were younger. But now, as they've gotten older, they start to watch some of that stuff just on their own. Like they each have their own Netflix account. They each have their own, whatever streaming accounts for the different streaming services we have. And they watch all of that stuff. Like Isaac went back and watched all the old Rocky movies because he watched Creed and he's watched the first two Creeds. So he wanted to go back and watch all the Rocky movies. Like it's just different things that spur their interest to go back and watch the classics. I think that's what you need these, newer movies that tie into the classics rather than just trying to remake a classic.
But in the way that it's not fair is you have a buffet now. So if we watch Batman Returns, there are no other Batmans. Like this is it. You get back when you're a kid, you watch that, you're like, all right, I'm just gonna watch this a million times. But now you watch a Batman movie. I like that. Oh well, Timmy, here's a catalog of 18 different more Batman movies for you to enjoy. And then you just, you're able just to ingest so much of whatever it is that you love that's what I'm kind of jealous of. Right. But at the same time, again, there's so much out there that you're going to miss. And granted, anybody goes through that. Just like with books from art, it's like, how many books really have we missed out on?
Yep.
Just for the advent age of the internet, television, and other things that held our attention to where, we might have missed some of the classics and some of the greats to where once you get in college, then you're studying humanities courses and you're going back and you're getting, picking up some of that literature. But I don't know if that's so much the mindset these days. I mean, it's kind of, but like Greggy made a good point. We, and us guys that are set in our ways too, I watch a lot of the old television shows that I, enjoyed and just kind of watch that on repeat. One of those being The Simpsons seasons 1 through 10. And I was talking to Greggy the other day. I forget what episode it was, but something happened in the episode, and I told him, I was like, "Yeah, I remember when that aired, and they went to commercial break. Yeah, it was when Krusty the Clown he fakes his death because he's a tax cheat. So in the episode, after all of his stuff gets put up for auction, he takes his plane that he bought with Dean Martin.
I'm on a roller
in it. Yeah, and he wrecks it to where everyone thinks that he's dead. And I'm telling Greg, I was like, yeah, man, I remember when I was a kid watching that, and Chief Wiggums turns around, I was like, ladies and gentlemen, Krusty the Clown is dead. And then it shoots the commercial, and you're just sitting there on your hands for 2 minutes, like, oh my God, I can't look like what happened. You know what I mean? That's some of that stuff is just.
We don't have that now.
No.
You don't have any of that now. You have people who, I mean, I'll give it up for like The Mandalorian and like The Last of Us recently, where these shows are coming out one episode at a time. So it gets you talking in between episodes. But a lot of times what you get is, like Stranger Things, that season 4 drops. People talk about it for a week and then done. Because they watched all 8 episodes in one night. And then they talk about it for a week and then it's done and they move on to the next thing. And it's like, next. And it just feels like that's the society we live in, is everybody's like, all right, next. What's next? What do you got for me next? What do you got for me? Come on, keep. And it's like, we don't really appreciate the things that we have now or the things that are being created in the now, in the present, because back then, we didn't have so many things at our disposal. I mean, think about it. Before, when things were coming up during the late 90s, early 2000s, what was there before that we could really have for ourselves to enjoy? Like, as far as the kind of comedy that we like, the kind of games that we like, the kind of comic books, the kind of whatever. There really wasn't a whole lot to pull from. Now, there's 40 years worth of some of the stuff that we like that's out there for anybody to ingest and like that wasn't there when we were kids. There wasn't 40 years worth of this stuff when we were kids. So it's just a different society we live in now, and everybody's kind of got this throwaway attitude about even art and like just everything in general. It's got this kind of like, okay, well, next, what have you done for me lately kind of attitude. And there was a lot more appreciation for it back in the day, I feel.
I couldn't imagine the thought process or the feeling that a younger person would have now looking at like the J.C. Penney Christmas catalog when you're seeing things that you don't get to see in the stores or stuff that you don't ordinarily like. Oh shit! You feel like there's a whole nother world out there still.
Dude, the Sears catalog always used to blow my mind. Like how big that thing was every year. And my grandma would have it sitting on her coffee table, and you would just sit there and look through that thing, and you're like, there's all these toys that I've never even heard of. Like, I remember the Lego section was like that damn thick in that thing, and you're like, I loved Legos. There was Lego sets in there I still don't even remember they had, like, I bet Lego doesn't even remember they had some of those sets.
Greggy and I, we went to the toy show in Columbus on Sunday at the Expo Center, and as we go around there, Greggy will kind of nod me and be like, hey, didn't you have this random ass toy or this play set?
Yep.
And I'd be like, yeah, I did have that random ass toy or play set. And one of the things that got me thinking was like, what's your mindset? What's the thought process when you're a kid? And like there was stuff that I didn't even know I was interested in that I had when I was a kid that I like. Why did I have this random action figure from the Toxic Avenger when
but it would just spark your memory when you saw it. Like,
oh yeah, God,
I remember having that,
Yeah, that's half the battle of wanting to buy this shit again. It's like, oh, I had that. And then you buy it, you're like, oh, now I have this
again.
What do I do with it?
Greggy? Greggy likes toys. Greggy was telling me about how he's walking around that convention with you, and he was like, I got better stuff than half these guys.
Yeah. That's the thing, too, is Greggy's just kind of like, I could kick my parents in the ass wondering what happened to half this stuff because we see Castle Grayskull and the Snake Mountain and shit, and I'm just like, isn't that just sitting out in my mom's shed rotting right now? And these jamokes are asking $235 on it for a He-Man castle.
I just remember, I was big into Legos, like I said, but I was also big into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the late 90s or early 90s. I was big into the Turtles.
That shit's early.
And like I had the little van that would shoot pizzas. I had the sewer where they would come up out of the sewer and like there was a little manhole cover on top and you like twisted this thing and they'd come up through the top of the sewer. Like it was cool shit. I had a bunch and all the movie ones. Remember how the movie ones were like rubbery kind of instead of being plastic like the other ones, the movie turtles, they were like rubbery and you could pull their arms off and shit. And like, I don't know. I had all kinds of different Turtles toys. That was my thing when I was a kid, when I was real young, was Turtles. And then I got into Legos and all kinds of different toys. What was your thing growing up, Tommy? What kind of toys did you like?
I have a Turtles trauma story.
Turtles trauma story. All right, let's hear it.
Yes. So I'm a young boy. It's probably 1992, 1993. My parents have a good friend that they worked with, and her friend has a daughter about my age. We go to this Halloween party, and there was like a regular Halloween party for kids and whatnot, and then there was a adult Halloween party that I guess the teenagers stayed afterwards and whatnot. Anyway, the parents were out of town. I am brought back home from this Halloween party thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the car and in my possession, I was probably being a fucking brat, crying about having to go home from the party or something like that. And I got my little Batman '89 costume on with the plastic Batman mask that's cracked and shit. Couldn't fit on my big fat dome. But what I remember is the action figures I had at that time was a Bebop and Rocksteady, and they were brand new, and like they had like flip and fold armor or some shit. No, I guess when I was playing with those, I remember that my brothers had come home from that party and that they were all in trouble because I guess somebody at that party had jumped into a pool that didn't have any water in it, and it did not end too well for them. But I remember, for some reason, I remember that like being 6 years old. That's how every time I think about playing with the Ninja Turtles, I'm like, oh yeah.
That's a horror story.
But my favorite toys as a kid is Ninja Turtles.
Traumatic turn
Had
events.
Trauma Turtles. I like them. I was big into Star Wars Legos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, they like the
I had
Boba Fett Slave One. I had that.
yeah.
They had Millennium Falcon, the
Oh, that was the
big
one.
one.
That was the one.
Yeah, the Grail.
Yeah.
Speaking of Grails, I don't know why I keep thinking of these random memories. But were you into G.I. Joe as a kid?
Not quite as much. My mom kind of kept me shielded from a lot of things that were related to guns. She was anti-gun growing up, so it was kind of like, okay, all right, well, anything that had to do with guns, she was like, you can't watch that. But she was cool with me watching The Simpsons and South Park and all that shit. You know, she didn't care about any of that, but like.
So they had when I was a boy, or now that I've not grown up, but now that I've gotten older, I'm on these toy groups and I see like these dorks post like holy grail items and stuff.
Right.
And I'm just like, God, I can't believe that's how much that's fetching. I remember my mother and I, we had went to the big thing in the 90s too, were garage sales. And you get up early on Saturdays and like, God, they were just the town of Bloomville, like shut down. Everybody would go out in their yards and have a big old garage sale.
Right.
And I remember I had went to a garage sale, and there in the garage sale was a USS Flag G.I. Joe. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's like the huge battle boat. Like
Wow.
the huge one.
The big one.
And like, yeah, and you would open the lid.
Like the aircraft
to where
carrier,
like the
right?
the aircraft carrier. And inside that were a shit ton of G.I. Joes too. And this is probably, like I said, probably the early run of it. So this is probably mid 90s. So those toys are probably 10 years old at the time or whatnot. But I just remember my mom, she gave that woman like $50 or $25 or something like that. And I remember I lugged that big ass thing into her Dodge Shadow.
My God.
I held that in the back seat. Now I see online, again, this was just, I wasn't even really into G.I. Joe, but I just wanted that huge battle.
Those are going for hundreds
boat.
of dollars now, man.
Oh, yeah. They're hundreds of dollars. And I'm sitting there like, yep. So like Greg and I go there and we just shake our heads. I'm like, yep, had that. Yep, had that. Oh shit, had that.
Wow.
And then these jamokes try to finesse you.
To think of all the things that we probably threw away that are now worth ridiculous amounts of money. But our parents said the same shit when they were our age, like my parents were always saying shit like, oh, I threw away so much stuff that's probably
Here's the thing though, what the hell did they have?
Yeah.
Like for real, when you think about, we're only a few generations removed from, people wearing flour sacks and, eating like splitting a can of peas, trying to survive the Dust Bowl. So like, they have fucking toys and trinkets and shit like that to collect and G.I. Joes, to where again, every generation, it's kind of gotten geekier and just weirder as time's gone on. Like I can't imagine a nursing home when we get older. You're gonna have a bunch of tatted up jabronis with earlobes hanging down to here, trying to be like, "Hey, Frank stole my limited edition sale bars from Return of the Jedi. And then so it's like shit that didn't matter to our grandparents or parents and stuff, like materialistic things. This do this complete jealousy. They're
Oh
just
yeah.
jealous they didn't have that shit
Oh yeah.
themselves. So now we're in this unique generation where we're able to recollect our childhood, and it's just been big business for everybody that's into that kind of collecting or reselling. Because if you really think about it, steel toys and stuff like that from the 40s and 50s, they ain't worth
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
they
ain't
are,
that
but
shit
they're
ain't even.
not.
Yeah. Well, you
It's
don't
like
see very much of it around
vintage.
anymore.
Yeah, it's like vintage He-Man and vintage this and Ghostbuster toys and shit. I'm just like, God, I can't
Yeah.
believe how much money this shit's worth. The firehouse from the Ghostbusters toys that Greggy had, that fucking thing's a holy grail item too.
It's crazy to
Greg,
think some of that stuff and like the value that's attached to it now. It almost feels like, I guess if somebody's willing to pay it, whatever, it's worth what someone's willing to pay. But I don't know, man. I feel like during
Greggy,
COVID, a lot of this stuff got inflated. Like a lot of the value on some of these collectibles really got inflated during COVID because everybody got all that COVID money and they were sitting around and they were like, hey, I'm going to collect this random thing. I'm going to start collecting this. And now all of a sudden, because it's a niche item, these things are more expensive, whatever. I don't know.
right? And just these like repopulated toys like that came out a few years ago.
Or like Pokemon cards. Like, what the hell happened with Pokemon cards? When the hell did they get big again? Like, they were big when I was like younger.
Yeah.
And then they just puttered out and nothing happened. Like, nobody was into them for like 10 years. It was a good 10 years. People were not into Pokemon cards. Even when Pokemon Go first started. Remember, Greg? Nobody was into Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, kids are trading them at school, getting in trouble for them and shit. Like, what is going on with Pokemon cards? How did that all of a sudden now become way more popular?
I think it's just, I just think it's kids catching on to something, and then they go down that wormhole again.
It's just crazy. I don't know.
Greggy can't relate because his toys were never worth anything. For some reason, he was never allowed to have any accessories or shit on any of his toys. Oh, Ghostbusters car with no doors on it.
Stop!
Well, you're gonna lose it anyway, Greggy. So I figured I'd just save you the hassle, so your father doesn't step on it.
No.
Thanks, Mom.
It kind of sound honestly. When I was younger, I was really young. I was like 3 or 4 or 5 years old. My grandma said that like I had this infatuation with junkyards for some reason. I went to the junkyard with my grandpa a couple times, and I became infatuated with the junkyard. And so, like, I would take my cars, Matchbox cars, and I would leave them underneath of her tires so that when she left for work, she would run them over, and then those became my junkyard cars. She's like, I would buy you brand new Matchbox cars, and you'd take them out and lay them underneath the tire of my car, so I'd run them over, and then I'd have these piles of junky cars, so I'd try to throw them away, and you get mad at me. Oh, that's my junkyard. And it's like, I got into stupid shit when I was a kid. Did you ever do anything stupid like that? Like, I mean, just destroy some of your own shit? Like, I think about some of the stuff that maybe, like, one of those cars might have been worth a bunch of money, and I just like, whatever, throw it under the tire, smash it up. Like, you ever think about shit like that? Like, what you could have broken back in the day that probably is worth thousands of dollars now? Because you're just whatever. I'm playing with it.
I'm pretty sure when Brooke saw my pile of cars out in the parking lot and sitting in their spot, I said the same thing. That's my junkyard. What are you doing about that's my junkyard? But
damn it. Are you gonna get rid of them cars? That's my junkyard.
my junkyard. But no, dude, I didn't get to voluntarily break my own shit. It's great. You can attest to. I would get a brand new toy, being the baby of the family, and my brother would catch a glimpse or glint of the toy in the
And he would
sunlight
break
somehow,
Oh, yeah.
and he'd walk up. What we got here? Oh man, that's pretty cool. Too cool for a piece of shit. Break it.
Smash.
Oh, that was my toy. Ah! Quit crying, Bob.
Quit crying.
But like, it's just like,
God, that's too funny.
why would you just tear the arm off of it for no reason? Like, and there's no repercussions. It's like
Nope.
I tell my dad or whatever. It's like if I was the dad in that situation, I'd be like, "Hey, you son of a junior son of a bitch! I just bought that 20 fucking minutes ago for $30, and your dumbass comes in and rips the goddamn arm off of it for what? For what? To prove a point?" It's like,
Just to
God,
be a
I
bully.
scratch my head. I scratch my head, bro. Hey, did you ever find the leg to this?
Did you ever find
Yeah.
the legs to
It was
this?
it was snapped off a bit. There is no leg to be found. That's why all the toys probably got thrown away. Jesus. That's for
Ah,
therapeutic.
very therapeutic.
Reliving turtle trauma. Transformer transfers of punches.
PTSD from turtle trauma. Look at Greggy hanging out in the turtle van.
Emotions in a half shell. Turtle trauma. Tommy
Oh,
is Tommy's cool but rude.
when you guys need to, you guys should do your own show one time where you guys just play Fortnite and talk shit, and just like have a show where you just talk shit and play Fortnite.
Most quickly canceled show.
Quickly cancel. That's the one for just Patreon. How about that? We need
I tell
ones
you-
where we can just do like just straight podcasts that are only for Patreon, where we don't have to worry about getting canceled. We can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, I think like
you
I said,
know,
the only
like-
time Greggy and I could stream is if we were at like Joe Rogan's cancel club or whatever comedy store he's got now.
I mean, if guys
But,
like Tom Segura can make it and like he can get away with some of the shit he gets away with, come on, man. Like,
Well, I
we
mean,
get
my wife's
canceled?
unfunny too, so I mean, I'm halfway there.
Oh man, he's coming for you now.
Oh.
Can't believe you
Fuck
just said that.
him.
Well, hey, Bubba, you want anything else you want to talk about? It's getting kind of late here.
No, we
I
had
mean,
an
it's not
alarm
late,
form.
but it's like 10:30. I figured I'd let
No,
you
we've
know,
been
let
on
you-
for over now. How long we've been going, Greg?
I think it's been about 2 hours now, right?
Hour 34.
Hour 34. Okay, very very nice. It's been fun.
That's what I
Bubba.
said.
We need to do this
Anytime,
more often.
yeah, anytime you just want to shoot the shit. I mean, there's a lot that has gone on in our lives, and like we talk about, as you get older and you become more of a career person or a professional. Luckily, I've been blessed in my life to be able to follow some passions to where I've met people who've been able to come along on the journey with me. Even like with Greg
Yep.
joining me and us working together at the newspaper and then transitioning that into radio and into what we're doing now, to the point where it's like, it's one thing to do something that you're passionate about, and it's another thing that to get paid for it.
That's right.
And like as great as that is, sometimes you lose out on really, like I've known you for over a decade, and like really I know you more professionally than I do anything personally. Like, I don't know
Right.
your backstory. We never really get to deep dive into our histories or talk about the shit because we're so busy putting everything else and everybody else over that we never really get a chance to kind of know who exactly is ahead in front of us. So it's good to kind of hang out. And,
Yeah.
a paycheck's always nice with it, but again, it's like that just comes naturally when you're doing good stuff with people that are trying to have the same vision as you. So I mean, It turned into a passionate project that with friends just kind of turned into a paid gig eventually. And it's nice to kind of step back and kind of breathe for a minute rather than be on all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And
Like I
honestly,
said, I think this is the first time I've guested on a show ever.
yeah. Honestly, I thought, with the way we've been doing what we've been doing, I think you have found your niche and found your way to contribute in a way that honestly I didn't know that you would, because with you moving to Delaware, with the change happened for you at the same time that the change happened for us, where we kind of were diving full, like all the way in with this and saying, all right, this is what we're going to do. You made the change and made the move right around the same time, man. So I didn't know what to expect from you as far as what you were going to contribute. And honestly, I've always looked at it like anything we get from you outside of calling the games is a bonus. I love anything we can get, because anytime we can sit down and talk whatever, talk knowledge, talk some shit, talk sports, whatever. I cherish these times, Bubba. Like I really do. I think we create some golden content when we're together.
Even this jabroni setup is like, me, is like I don't want to do anything unless it's up to snuff and up to standards. Yeah. So even this is below par, but again, it's been too long coming. Sometimes you just want to start doing things, and I'm at a point in my life too where again it's like you kind of reassess and kind of set the table again, reset the board, because again it's just kind of doing the same thing for the last 10 years. It goes by in a blink of an eye, and then you just kind of become complacent. So I'm trying to roll into some other things and grab life by the short hairs again, to try to do more with my days, like we talked about with Greggy. Like old Tommy would never know about a toy show 12 hours in advance and still go to it early in the morning. It's just sometimes you just gotta will yourself anymore,
Oh,
so it's
absolutely.
Good to
Sometimes
it's good
you
to
just
just come
get
on
in the
here
bus and go. Ain't that right, Greggy?
Yeah.
What's that?
Sometimes
What's
you just
that?
gotta get in the van and go.
Speaking of accidents, before we get out of here, it's like I've never really been in too many, and he's talking about getting in the van and go. It just reminded me of when Greggy and I were one of the first times that I had dabbled in the devil's lettuce.
Oh God, here we go.
We had went and watched Mission Impossible 3. I just never forget driving home. He looks at me, and this person's coming out of the Circle K parking lot, and he's just like, "This person's not gonna stop." I go, "What?" "They're not gonna stop." He puts his brakes on, and that car just goes smash right into us. And I was like, I didn't know that could happen, brother. But when that happens, it's like sometimes it's unavoidable, and that's what he said. Get in the van. For some reason, I thought that's what you were referring to.
That's what came to your mind right away.
Yeah, they're not gonna stop.
It's coming right for us. All right, Bubba. Well, hey,
or Greggy using Chris Walker's roommate as a counterweight for his van. I don't know which one. Chris, get in the van, get in the back. It's a real drive van. We need the
on that note, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on with me tonight, Bob. It's been a blast.
Tommy Cash, TC, and Greggy and his friend TC Traction Control.
Tons of fun.
Traction control.
You got something though on your shirt there.
You got something on your shirt right here. All right, Bubba. Later on.
We'll get another show going.
Oh, yeah.
Later.
Take it easy. All right. This has been Mullin It Over. You guys have a good night. Take care.